Welcome back to the shop, everyone. Today's video takes place in week 22 of 2022, which is May 30th to June 5th, and we are finally taking a little bit of a break from wiring. So what I have on the bench right there is a hydraulic clutch assembly for converting this car from a cable clutch to a hydraulic clutch. Alright, so we got this beautiful piece from Modern Driveline. It's specifically designed for the foxbody. It's supposed to bolt right in. And as usual, we are going to open the box, look at all the parts, and read the instructions. I haven't got this fully installed in the car yet because I ran into a few fitment issues. But overall, this is a very nice piece, and I'm really excited to have it in the car when it actually gets in the car. It comes with the master cylinder, I believe a couple of lines. I got the remote reservoir option, and then all of the linkages to go from the clutch pedal to the master cylinder. You can see here I'm taking some pictures with my other camera. I'm going to take some video along the way, and that's the camera I do all the instructional videos with. So once I eventually do get this fully in the car, I will have an instructional video to go with it, but that won't come out until I have the full material to actually get the video produced and done. I don't want to do half of an instructional video like part one and then a few months later do part two. I want to make it so that if someone's trying to figure out how to install this part in the car, they get the process start to finish all in one shot. There's a few things I don't need, so I'm just going to throw them back in the box real quick. So now we're just going through some of the parts and following the directions and getting the first main linkage piece all put together with the supplied hardware. As you can see, it's taken me, a couple attempts to get this all laid out in the correct manner. But that's part of figuring this out, is just trying to decipher the instructions and, actually doing it. So on the bench at the top middle, there's a little block with a hole in the middle, and that's the first thing that we're going to try and install in the car. That sits right on the firewall, and then the block that's to the left, that's kind of tall, protruding off the table, bolts onto that first block. So yeah, first piece of the puzzle, get that block at the top middle onto the firewall. Unfortunately, I didn't get a really good angle of it while I was trying to test fit, but that block doesn't sit as flush on the firewall as I would like, so I'm going to do a little bit of modifications on the firewall itself just to get that block fitting in there better. Looking back, I probably didn't need to do what I'm about to do, but this is my first time doing this, so, you know, you live and you learn. The hole on the right, that's where that block sits in. The left Sharpie where it says elec is where my electrical connections are going to come through, and that the hole between those two is where the throttle cable is supposed to be. So that's what's going on in here. Right side clutch, then throttle cable, and then all my electrical connections are going to come through the firewall in that general area. You know, thinking about this now, an alternative instead of modifying the firewall is I could have potentially ground down that billet block a little bit, just ground down the edges just to get it to fit into that area a bit better. That might have been preferable, but I think the firewall is also bent out a little bit, so I'm not sure if the 79 to 86 firewall is different than the 87 to 93, or, you know, if something else happened. If I recall correctly, this car actually started out as an automatic. So where that clutch cable came through may not have been in a factory location, now that I think about it. And that may be why that block didn't fit properly. What I probably should have done is welded that hole up, moved the block to where I was happy with it, and then just re-drilled the hole. Because yeah, I think this car started as an automatic. But you know what, hey, we're here, we're gonna make it work, and at the end of the day, it's gonna work perfectly. And if for some reason it doesn't work perfectly, well, it's just metal. I can cut that part out of the firewall, put an entirely new piece in, and just redo the entire thing. Not a big deal. So I've got this firewall modified to a point where I'm happy with it, and what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to hole punch or center punch for the first hole that I'm going to drill out for the first screw. If I recall correctly, I think that hole was already in the firewall, so I just opened it up a bit. So in the initial test fitting here with the bolt, it looks like it does not fit for shit. So I'm not sure what happened. I think the hole that was in the firewall just wasn't quite in the right place. No, I'm just gonna have to fix this. So I need to fix this. Well, how am I going to fix this? Well, we're going to start by cleaning off all of the metal around the existing holes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab the good old welder and we are going to fill in those holes with some weld, grind it all back down flush, and then we can try drilling a new hole in a better location once those holes are filled. bolt started any way I can. As you saw, I had a hammer. I was trying to beat it in. I'm just trying to, thread it in. And if I recall correctly, right there in the firewall, it's kind of double skinned. And so what had happened is, as I was trying to thread that bolt in, it just pushed the second skin back into the car and caused it all to get hung up. So I just tried using a clamp, and then I tried using pliers to try and get it bent back, and then I realized, stop being an idiot, just put a bolt and a washer on it, it'll pinch them back together, and then from there I can try and get that bolt back into place. So looks like even with getting those two pieces of the firewall put back together, it still wasn't big enough for the bolt to go in. So I've just opened up the hole a bit more, and I will continue to open up that hole until everything kind of fits in place. I'll tell you, this whole process trying to get this one hole drilled out and lined up perfectly was just super frustrating at the time. Holy crap, finally got that first bolt, so let's center punch and try and get the second one in. Hopefully this one goes a lot fucking quicker. Hey, look at that, 2 bolts holding it in. It's a thing of beauty. So what you briefly saw there was that second block that I was talking about. So that's what holds the master cylinder on, and then there's just 2 bolts that bolt that block onto, or sorry, the master bolts through that block into the back block, I believe. So yeah, the block just is not sitting flush on the firewall, and I don't like it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that bottom out and then just beat down the metal on the bottom. As I say, now that I think about this, I probably could have just ground down the bottom of that big block a little bit, and it probably would have gone in there just as well instead of cutting up the firewall. But it is what it is. As you can kind of see, I've kind of mangled and butchered the hell out of this firewall. So, looking back on this, I'm like, what I might need to do is, when I get back to working on this, is cut this entire section out of the firewall and just redo the whole thing. Re-drill the middle hole, redo all of the holes for the blocking plate, just redo the entire thing, because, man, this is mangled. so I just went out and I took a look at the car, and I left it in a half-done state because I think I was as paralyzed by indecision then as I am now in what do I want to do with it. Do I want to just kind of fill up the holes and the gaps and it'll look nice, or do I want to cut it all out and just redo the entire area? So I'm just cutting up a little bit more of the firewall just to kind of make it sit flush and nice. And then I'm going to put a little piece of filler metal in there, and I think that's where I leave this. So I'm just using that little piece of tape with a Sharpie just to get a rough template as to what I want to cut out from metal to fill in the gap from where I cut and bent the firewall there. So that's what I'm doing, just transferring that tape over to the metal, and I'm just going to cut it out with tin snips, and then I'm going to put that in the car. So I'm just tacking it in right here, that little filler piece that I built. As I mentioned, this will still need some body work before, I paint the firewall or paint the car or anything like that, because it's not great. It's very rough. It's very, very ugly if you were to look at it right now. But I left it because technically it fit, the holes lined up, and for that it was good enough until I can decide what I actually want to do there. Alright, so now we're moving to the inside of the car for this part of the install. What I'm going to do first is, because I was doing a lot of the wiring is just kind of in the way, I'm just going to clean up and tidy up a little bit of the wiring before I get to attempting to mount the pedal linkages. So I'm very sorry for the video that's about to happen, because the camera is just in the absolute worst spot. I really should have had this down low on the driver's side so you could see me trying to fight to get this in there and lined up. But instead, you get to see my back for the next 20 minutes, half an hour, or however long I am dicking around in the car here. Now, as you can see, my car is pretty bare. I've got the steering wheel, or the steering column in and kind of roughly held up. I got the pedal box in. And I had a hell of a time trying to get this clutch pedal linkage installed. And at the end of the day, I wasn't even able to get it in. So I think what I have to do in order to get it fully installed is actually loosen or drop the pedal box, and then I'll be able to get it into place. But yeah, I spent a lot of time, like the rest of this video, trying to get this linkage installed, and I just couldn't get it figured out with the steering column and the pedal box fully in the car like it is. So you can see I'm bringing my other camera out, and that's again so I can do the instructional video on trying to install the Modern Driveline's hydraulic clutch kit for the 79 to 03 foxbody. So even though I didn't get you guys a great camera angle of my struggles in the time-lapse video, once the instructional video comes out, you'll be able to see, hopefully a lot clearer, a lot better, my struggle with trying to get this in. Again, I'm so sorry that this is just a terrible camera angle of my back, and really not anything that I'm doing on the car. Alright, so I'm done with my struggle for now. I'm going to quickly put some of these parts back in the box for later. And hey, if you've stuck around this long, I'd like to thank you so much for viewing, and we'll see you in the next one.